merry little surge of electricity piped by automatic alarm from the mood organ beside his bed awakened Rick Deckard. Surprised, he rose from the bed, stood up in his multicolored pajamas, and stretched. His wife Erin opened her grey, unmerry eyes, blinked, then groaned, and shut her eyes again. The cop described by Philip K. Dick in the 1968 novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep has little in common with the bounty killer that will be played by Harrison Ford in the gloomy Los Angeles of 2019, imagined by Ridley Scott. Yet, it will be enough for the writer to watch just a 20-minute preview to understand how Blade Runner, screened 4 months after his death, stayed faithful to the spirit of his work. Because from the Dick's 68 to the Scott's 82, although different from Howard 2019, the real and imaginary one of Blade Runner was the year the cinema was lit up by the glows of a humanity dying in the darkness of an endless artificial night. Darkness in which the movie itself was going to be stuck if in 75, at the first meeting, the actor and screenwriter Hampton Fancher had let himself be persuaded by the writer to buy the rights of another novel, Flow Tears, the policeman said. Despite Dick's hostility towards Hollywood, Fancher doesn't intend to give up on the goal of adapting the story of a bounty hunter whose greatest aspiration is to buy an electric ship in a future where terrestrial fauna is almost completely extinct. He reaches his aim 2 years later, when he convinces his friend actor Brian Kelly to purchase the option on the book, which is then proposed to Michael DeLee, producer of the Oscar winner The Deer Hunter, directed by Michael Cimino. In the early drafts of the script written by Fancher, Rick Deckard is presented as a sloppy San Francisco police bureaucrat charged with the task of eliminating outlawed androids in a story mostly made of interior scenes full of dialogues. In Mechanismo and Dangerous Days, third and fourth version of the screenplay, Fancher emphasizes the themes of the environmental issues and the dehumanization of future society, moving the story to Los Angeles, erasing the figure of Deckard's wife Erin, and introducing the tragic love story with the android Rachel. Strengthened by the unexpected endorsement given by Gregory Peck, who issues a praise letter to film studios to support its production, in '79 the project lands on the desk of the English director Ridley Scott, fresh from the sci-fi horror success Alien. At first, the desire to explore genres other than science fiction and the fact he was already committed to an adaptation of Tristan and Isolde pushes the director to reject the proposal. The death of his elder brother Frank occurred in the early 80s, makes him retrace his steps, while he's grappling with the pre-production of Dune, based on the eponymous novel by Frank Herbert and produced by Dino De Laurentiis. I'd realized that I needed something to get my mind off the tragedy, and that I'd better take something which will be an immediate go. As if to heal the pain of loss, Scott leaves the tough development of Dune that will be filmed 4 years later by David Lynch, and decides to dedicate himself to a movie that could count on an early budget of $13 million, but which eventually will have required more than twice as much. Scott's creative impulse propels several script revisions and the change of the title to Blade Runner, a name taken from Alan E. Nurse's novel and its adaptation by William Burroughs found by Fancher. Revisions were born both from the director's desires to provide the story with a visual identity and a consistent socio-cultural framework, and to give a plausible motivation to the android escape from off-world colonies. Thus, the Scott's favorite comics inspired the baroque, retrofuturistic style of the movie, those of the magazine Heavy Metal, The Long Tomorrow by Moebius, and the cyber-Egyptian architectures of the Carnival of Immortals by the Serbian Enki Bilal. But even the visions of painters such as Van Eyck, Vermeer, Emmanuel de Witt, Edward Hopper, and the futuristic Art Deco of Metropolis by Fritz Lang will contribute to the layered and mysterious atmosphere of the movie. Within a few months, the impassioned discussions on scenes and narrative choices turn into intellectual duels that see Fancher defending his romantic moralist approach to the movie against the more hard-boiled one supported by Scott. The removal of Fancher from the pre-production is just one of the many accidents dotting the troubled gestation of the movie. Reached by Ridley, screenwriter David Peoples is in fact requested to rework Fancher's script by inserting all those elements typical of the detective story and the metropolitan noir wanted by Scott. His new version, delivered on December 15, 1980, arrives just before another living, that of the production company Filmways, threatens to wreck the project while it's taking its final form. Once again, Ridley runs for cover, succeeding in securing a three-way agreement with the lead company, the magnate run show The Far East Movie, and the Tandem Production. Thus, it was also possible to honor the contract already signed by Harrison Ford in October, when the actor known as the Star Wars Han Solo had taken over from Dustin Hoffman in the title role just after wrapping up Raiders of the Lost Ark in the role of Indiana Jones. Deckard, brought to life on screen by Ford, is a disenchanted and melancholy ex-policeman, dehumanized by his work in the Blade Runner special unit in charge of withdrawing, or rather killing, the replicants produced by the Tyrell Corporation once escaped from the off-world colonies. Quite different from the mechanical androids described in Dick's novel, the replicants Roy Batty, Pris, Zora, and Leon, played by Rutger Hauer, Daryl Hannah, Joanna Cassidy, and Brian James, represent the state-of-the-art in bioengineering achieved on industrial scale by the biomechanics tycoon Eldon Tyrell, played by Joe Turkel. Made more human than human by superhuman strength and intelligence, the new Nexus 6 models are conscious organisms capable of emotions, willing to risk life on Earth in order to extend the 4-year lifespan programmed by their creators. In a specular antithesis recalling that between Dr. Frankenstein and his creature, first Leon, then Roy Batty, try to infiltrate the ziggurat of the Tyrell Corporation to meet the one who, having given them life, is supposed to be the only one able to prolong it. Tyrell seems to have initially underestimated the extent of the emotional short-circuit triggered in the replicants by the knowledge of their own termination date. The memory implants that gratified the secretary Rachel, played by Sean Young, of a childhood she never had, are, in this sense, an experimental trick to prevent the rebellion of the replicants through the delusion of a human dimension that, conversely, human beings like Deckard seem having lost. A recurring theme in Dick's literature, the paranoid ambiguity about identity surrounds many of the movie characters. From Deckard himself, who, like Leon, collects photos in order to keep the evidence of his past on sight and dreams of a unicorn whose origin is perhaps known only to the other Blade Runner gaff, to the genetic designer J.F. Sebastian, who builds humanoid toys to make up for the absence of a family, to Hannibal Chu, who in his cryogenic laboratory speaks with a fatherly voice to his artificial eyes that allow replicants like Roy Batty to see things that people wouldn't believe. Similar to his almost homonymous René Descartes, philosopher of the hyperbolic doubt, even the former Blade Runner Back to Duty begins to doubt the reality he has lived in so far, as he gets new feelings for Rachel, since he knows she's not human and therefore not real. Thanks to a sort of a truth machine, designed to define whether or not the suspect is human by a series of questions planned to elicit physiological reactions that replicant could never emulate, the Voigt-Kampff test Rachel is subjected to confirms the degree of cruelty reached by Tyrell's megalomania by revealing how her entire existence is a double deception, body-wise and mental-wise. "I'm not in the business. I am the business," Rachel whispers to Deckard after saving him from Leon's vengeful fury, ready to blind him for firing at Zora's back. Degraded to a death machine, Deckard gets his last chance at redemption through the passion he feels for Rachel, the only real human strength in the grime of Los Angeles, tarnished by the damp darkness of a near nightmare, from which the multi-ethnic remnants of a humanity on the verge of apocalypse can only hope to escape by off-world shuttle. Flesh and soul are given to Scott's dystopian vision by the heart and set design of Sid Mead, based on the concept of reusing all the urban structures on which the new housing complexes take root as colossal glowing mangroves, as well as the special effects of Douglas Trumbull, already in charge of those of 2001 A Space Odyssey, and Jordan Cronenweth's low-key cinematography, capable of giving Caravagesque drama to the shadows and the blades of light piercing the interiors and exteriors of an eternal rainy night. Still, the movie will lose half of its poetic poignance without the enigmatic melancholy of the all-pervading Vangelis soundtrack. First met by editor Terry Rawlings while working on the editing of Hugh Hudson's Chariots of Fire, for which Vangelis composed the Oscar-winning score, the virtuoso Greek multi-instrumentalist accepted the invitation to create a musical chrysalis of Blade Runner right after being shocked and fascinated by the visionary lavishness and the premonitory force of the movie. With its dense weaving of synthesizers mixed with percussions, gongs and tubular bells, the voice of Demis Rousseau's and Dick Morrissey's sax, Vangelis' music translates into a touching electroacoustic arabesque, the cosmic nostalgic breath of the movie, evoking a spiritual ecosystem, throbbing within and beyond the screen boundaries. The box office failure in the '82 summer, dominated by the most cheering and fairy tale science fiction of Spielberg's E.T., comes as the last in the long series of slights and misunderstandings experienced on set by the crew and the director himself, forced by the production to add a Marlowe-esque voiceover and a happy ending with the aerial shots of Kubrick's Shining to make less distressing and incomprehensible a movie that, in the first public previews, was defined as one of the most depressing ever. Then, in 1990, the accidental finding in a Hollywood archive of a 70mm Vogue print puts a spotlight on what has become a classic, thanks to several years of TV airings. The director's cut, edited by Scott from this copy, shows a version more faithful to the original artistic idea, by eliminating the voiceover and the escape over the mountains, as well as reinserting the sequence of a unicorn dreamed by Deckard. Until, in 2007, on the 25th anniversary, the final cut was screened at Venice Film Festival as the last and definitive movie replicant. And once again, the public witnessed the last moments of Roy Batty on top of the Bradbury building, after he saved the life of the one who had to take it away from him. And maybe the memories of a false human being could be more authentic than ours, although, in the end, they are all destined to get lost in time, like tears in